I'm Chanel Scott, the queen of relationship talk.
I'm Josh Powell, two-time NBA champion.
I've journeyed from trauma to healing.
From the NBA to family, I've learned what really matters.
We've come together to unlock the secrets of successful relationships.
One conversation at a time.
One conversation at a time. Welcome to Relationships Matter, the podcast. My name is Chanel Scott.
And I am Josh Powell.
Guys, we have a special guest today, Mr. Lionell TJ Tillman. Child support is fraud. That's what you know him best for. But we're going to talk a little bit about relationships, and we're going to transition into this whole idea that child support is fraud.
Let's get to it.
My dog. Well, first and foremost, you were the first guest to come on here. Hey, my boy too clean, so I gotta give love, man, because this is like we talking about the brand. My brother is crushing it, and I love it, man. You look very dapper, brother, and I just gotta salute you, man.
I mean, I didn't come to play no game.
I know it,
but at the same time, like this is when I went into representing myself. Like every hearing, I was suited and booted head to toe to let them know I'm here for business. And, I didn't come to play no game.
See, everybody that see you, man, is obviously they want to get to the business first. But let's talk about the man first, because that's the most important. Okay. Let's talk because everybody, I already know, they only want to know the business.
Right.
But let's talk about TJ. Okay. You know what I mean? Tell us a little bit about your story first.
TJ, just first week. I mean, my name is Lionell Tillman. TJ Tillman, I'm a junior. So my family has called me TJ since I remember words. So that's where the TJ comes from. I grew up in Compton, California. Went to school, graduated from Compton High School, community college, and always had an entrepreneurial spirit.
Gotcha.
Always wanted to, work for myself. But for me, as an individual, as an adult, a great father, great husband, or at least I like to think.
Say that.
Yeah,
no, say that.
But yeah, I'm just a genuine person. Genuine spirit, and I just like to excel.
How did you grow up? Because I heard you say Compton, so I don't want to assume, but at the same time, I think it is to be assumed.
Yeah, I mean, for me, growing up in Compton, I was involved with the gangs and, as a young age. And unfortunately, like I say this, but I don't take pride in it, but I was literally shot at 5 times before I was 18 years old. As a child, just living on the street that I had no chance, I had no choice but to live here because this is where my mother and my grandmother reside. Being on the street that you're shooting marbles, you're riding bikes, you're playing with your friends. I was shot at 5 times before I was an adult. So just coming up in that environment, we had great times, but for me, that's not something that I would ever want my boys to have to experience. And I just feel like the path that I'm on, that's my mission, to make sure that they never have to endure the things that I had to grow up, because that's not normal for a child.
Right. I asked that because it's setting the tone for, I know you spoke about your wife, being married. So growing up in an environment like that, how do you choose the proper partner? Because I'm sure you got some trust issues, probably a little leery, maybe. I'm just assuming because of how you grew up, the things that you saw. So, talk about how that went into you choosing your partner.
My wife, I met her, she was 17, I was 18.
Okay.
We met at Compton had this, like I said, there was gangs, so they didn't like to put the city together a lot. But at one point we had this mayor, they put together these Compton transit parties. So every Saturday, everybody came in. There was the fights.
Right.
But that's where I met my wife at. I was 18, she was 17. One of my friends, Lil Mark, He said, "Hey man, I got somebody for you." And he walking me over, and when I seen her, I was like, "That's her?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Yo, my God." He like, "Yeah, I talked to her cousin, but that's how I met." And like for us, like it was the politics of the streets. Like my family and her family, two different sides of the city, don't mesh at all. So for us to even be together, like like one of my friends said this at the wedding, he actually on the mic, it's like just to look around the room to see the individuals that are in this room for love, like this is, you can't tell me that God isn't real. And so like, she's a beautiful woman. Like she takes great care of me and our children. We've been married since 2016. So what? Yeah, we've been together off and on. The traditional man doing man things, and she left me several times, but she made her way back, and she left me several times. As a young boy, just being a young boy, going out there doing what you want to do, and of course, as she say, what was done in the dark, it comes to the light. It always comes back around. We're in a small city, so you're talking to a whole nother girl. Her cousin is friends with her, so they get to talking, and it's like So she left me several times because of me just talking to other females, and
just talking.
Okay. I mean, but there was intimacy at some, but I'm just saying there was a few of them where just the fact of you talking to another woman and y'all dating. Oh, I gotta let you go.
What do you think brings y'all back together though? Because I know some people when they hear these types of stories, like, man, I would have been like, I'm straight. But there's something obviously that kept y'all connected. So what do you think that was?
Honestly, I believe it was God. Like we were, like she's my person. Like from the how we met. Like they only had 3 of them, if I'm not mistaken. It only lasted 3 weeks because of the street things that goes on in the city where it was fights, and it led on to once they had a shooting, it was over. So it only happened 3 weeks. So within that 3 weeks, here it is. I met the person that I'm going to be in a relationship with for the rest of our lives.
What about her made her your person though?
It wasn't like she was my piece. Like all of the other women that I dealt with, it was like when I get with them it's this. It was just, I liked them for different things, but whether they smoke cigarettes or it was just.
You like the woman for smoking cigarettes?
No,
I'm misunderstanding.
No. So I'm saying like it was something about the other woman that turned me off.
Okay, yes.
With her, she was reserved.
She was different.
She was my piece. Like when I was with her, it was a calm. It was like, this is my refuge, so to speak. She was never the flashy in the streets. She was a real reserved woman.
Is this your first and only wife?
My first and only, yeah.
Because I want to tie into the child support is fraud. Because you're still married.
Yes.
You got to pay child support before?
Before, yes, I did.
With this wife?
No.
Okay, with someone else?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
because you said y'all married at 17, 18.
Well, no, I met her. I was 18. I was 18.
17, 18.
She was 17.
But y'all married later on in life.
Yeah, so we married later on in life. The child support aspect, that's a whole it's a whole different story because.
Well, go ahead, because
y'all. Okay, so I want to get the timeline together so we can work our way into this.
Okay.
So you met your now wife when you was 18 and she was 17. And y'all dated when you was 18 and she was 17. But you have dated and had children with someone in between time before you married.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So I met her when I was 18. We didn't actually start dating. I want to say she was maybe 23 and I was 24. Because at the time, I had a girlfriend. She had a boyfriend.
Okay.
So we met, but, we're kids.
Yeah.
We're talking, and there was no cell phones at that time. This is 1996.
Okay.
So it's different. So we got to talk on the house phone.
Yeah.
So during that time period, the child that I was on child support for was conceived when I was 12 years old.
Wait a minute.
Right.
What now? And so, and how old was the mother?
She was 15.
She was 15. You was 12. Oh, so this happened before you even met your now wife.
Yes. Yeah. So,
okay, so keep going.
So met her. This happened when I was 12 years old.
Okay.
Time goes on. Long story short, I found out about my child support case 7 years after it opened. 7 years after the child support case started, I found out about it.
Because you was a kid.
I was a kid, and once I became an adult, like I said, I was involved in the streets, so I was hustling, so I didn't have a job. Once I actually started to change my life around, I got a job. 6 months in, HR gave me a call and said, it's payday. Say, hey, Mr. Tillman, we need to speak to you. I come in. They said, well, we got an income withholding order. What is that? She said, well, it's a garnishment. They're going to start taking garnishing your checks effective immediately. Who's going to start taking my money? She said, child support. What do you mean child support? She said, yeah, effective immediately. Here's the paper. So I called them. Child support says, well, you had 6 months to respond. It's been 7 years. And so there's nothing that can be done.
Did you know you had this child?
I knew the child was born.
Okay.
Yes.
But you know it was your child?
I've always maintained that it wasn't my child. Okay. Because at this time, like I said, I was 12 years old. Now here's a whole nother. I never penetrated the woman. I see your eyes. It's going. It's like, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean?
It's like one of those stories where you say, "Oh, he only put the tip."
No, yeah. Like we tried. I mean, I was 12, so I didn't know what I was doing. I never penetrated the woman. What I learned in 8th grade, we had a sex education class to where a person can become pregnant from pre-com. Yeah. So at this time, we're trying to figure it out. The girl, she goes MIA. There's nothing. This is before I even find out about child support. I'm still a child. So now I'm 13 years old. What can I do? I can't contact you. I don't have a phone to contact you. I don't know where the girl is. She was my cousin's friend. She disappeared. That's the last we heard of it.
Yeah.
Until HR says, hey, Mr. Tillman, you got child support. And this is, like I said, the case was going on for 7 years at this point.
So then what happened?
So at that point, I contact child support. I go to them and they tell me there's nothing that can be done. You need to go seek legal representation. I go to the court. The court tells me, yeah, according to family code, you had 6 months to respond. Your response is untimely. That's that.
Not taking into consideration that you were a child.
They didn't take any of that into consideration.
And it wasn't, I just want to clarify, there was no relationship between you and this 15-year-old girl. It was just a situation where it was one time.
That was it. I met her that day.
Okay. Wow.
Boy, putting it down.
I mean, she was my cousin's friend. So it's ironic, like yesterday, my grandmother, today is my grandmother's birthday. She passed away 3 years ago. And her sister, her birthday was yesterday, which is my great Aunt Mabel. At Aunt Mabel's house, everything goes. It was just one of those houses. My mother said when they was kids, that was the house where all the kids went to and all the friends come. People spend a night and they end up living there. That was just the atmosphere at Aunt Mabel's house. And here I am, I'm spending the night. And, my cousin's friend, she's there and we tried, and then that was the last I heard of it until
Gotcha.
years later. So at that point, this went on for another 13 years that nothing can be done. So there's 12. So just to give it a timeline, I find out about the case 7 years after it happened. So it's already 7 years. I talked to the court. The court says, according to family code, there's nothing that can be done. That goes on for another 13 years. So now we have 20 years. But in between those 13 years, now they're garnishing my checks. They put a lien on my name because I'm in arrears because I found out about the case 7 years after it opened. So when I found out about it, I'm already in arrears $24,000 in a hole because they provided the woman cash aid, food stamps, Medi-Cal. So they're coming after me for all of the money that they provided.
Did you ever meet the child?
I did after he was an adult.
Because he's only 12 years younger than you.
Yeah, so I ended up meeting him. My sister actually found him through Facebook. Through the process of me now taking child support to court to defend myself. And when I spoke to him, he was like, initially he was like, well, yeah, my mother told me that when I was a kid that you were my father, but later on in life, she told me who my real father is, and this is who I know my father to be. Like, that's my father.
And not to mention, you didn't sign a birth certificate.
I never signed a birth certificate, but she put my name on a birth certificate. So that's how they came after me. And there's once you get into the child support of it, if you don't contest it, they presume that you agree. And they have something called prima facie. So everyone is heard innocent until proven guilty, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's in a judicial matter. But child support is an administrative process. So that goes back into the separation of powers. There's judicial branch, executive, and legislative. So when in child support, they have prima facie, that means that they take everything that is filed to be true and correct until you provide evidence to show that it's not. So if you don't contest it, they're not doing any checks, no balances. That's just what it is. You have to actually contest it in order to provide evidence to show that what was filed was not done correctly. So during those 13 years, they're taking my money, but they're taking my license. And I'm paying them an additional $50 a month so I can keep my license. But every year, my license got suspended for a system error. Every year. So every year, I have to pay them an additional $50 to release my license, on top of the $50 that I'm paying them to keep it, on top of me having to pay the DMV $75 to reinstate my license every time. Now, here we go in this 13 years, and I'm just frustrated. And I'm like, why do we have to keep going through this? Like, why do y'all keep telling me it's a system error? And I'm like, man, I don't even know why I'm going through this anyway, because like, man, this is fraud. Like, I didn't even have sex with the girl. And the lady said, fraud? What do you mean it's fraud? You got served. I said, wait, I got served? She said, yes. I said, I got served. She said, yes. I said, well, tell me what day did I get served? Because I've been with me every day of my life. I know I didn't get served.
Mm-hmm.
She said, okay, well, hold on. I'll tell you exactly what day. She placed me on hold. She come back. She says, I'm sorry, Mr. Tillman. We don't have your signature. I said, I know you don't because I know I didn't get served. She said, well, that don't matter anyway.
Right.
You volunteered into the program. I did what? When did I volunteer? She said, well, yeah, you volunteered into the program. I said, okay, well, tell me what day I volunteered. She placed me on hold. She come back. I'm sorry, Mr. Tillman. We do not have your signature. So from this point, she told me that I had been served. She told me that they had my signature, which she just told me that they don't. So now I'm asking to speak to the supervisor and things of that nature. They get me to the Unbuzz department, which is like the internal affairs for child support.
Right.
Ultimately, they didn't do anything. And I end up taking them to court once I start doing more research. Because at that point, I said, okay, well, what else are they supposed to do? And that's when I started doing my research and studying their policy to see what was their policy on how they were to establish these cases. And I took them to court and I represented myself from 2 years from that point.
Wow. Did you ever see the mother of the child again?
No. No. She never showed up to court. They had...
But she was collecting money.
She was collecting money, but she never showed up to court. They contacted her many times and told her to come to court. We had maybe I want to say it was 14 hearings within a 2-year period. Mm-hmm. She never showed up to one. And I actually, I provided, once her son sent me a text message saying that, what she told him, mm-hmm. She contacted child support and said, I'm not showing up. I'm not coming at all. Y'all can do whatever y'all want to do. I'm not coming.
I noticed you said her son. So.
To this day,
because now here's the thing. I said her son because in this hearing, I told you that the child was conceived when I was 12 years old. Mm-hmm. What we later proved in court was I hadn't even reached puberty yet. I wasn't producing semen. I could not have birthed this child.
Did you do a DNA test?
There was no DNA testing. She declined. He declined. The son. He said, I know who my father is. I don't...
Because he already established
He's already established a relationship with
someone else.
Who his mother told him, this is who your father is. So he declined it twice. He said, no, I don't want to... I'll give you this and tell you what she told me, and this is who my father is, but neither one of them wanted to come to the actual hearing.
My mind is all over the place because some things, you know what I mean, I've heard, but then it's other pieces,
to
the story. Throughout this process, though, how did your wife support you in the midst of? You know what I mean? All of this going on.
So now I got to take the glasses off.
Yeah, because you're taking money out of the household and really just giving it to strangers, honestly.
Honestly, yeah. She's always maintained, you need to take care of that. First of all, before we even knew that I wasn't even eligible to produce semen at the time, she's like, you need to figure out if this is your child. Right. So, I'm trying to find him to figure it out because she's like, if he has your last name and this is your child, we need to figure this out. But once I start going through the hearing process, she initially, and here's the thing, she actually works for the courts. So imagine me telling her, child support is fraud. This is what they're supposed to do. It didn't go well initially because she's like, well, no, we do everything by the book. This is what it's supposed to be. The state statute says. That's a state statute. That has nothing to do with the federal law. States statutes benefit who? The state. Mm-hmm. So it didn't go well initially, but as I started going through the process, she was supportive, and once I would just come and here's the evidence. This is what they were supposed to do. This is what they did. And now she's looking at it. Wait, no, that ain't right. Because no, that's not how it's supposed to go. They're supposed to do it. All I'm going to do is show you the evidence on what it is that they're supposed to do. This is their own policy, and they're not following their own policy. And this is what it tells them has to happen. So she was supportive towards the middle part, going towards the end.
What was she upset about initially? The fact that you had a kid, or
nah, it was,
or
the fact where she got upset was when we was getting married. We planned on a honeymoon out the country.
Mm-hmm. Got you.
So we done spent $3,800 to go to Punta Cana. Mm-hmm. So now I apply for my passport.
Oh,
and they like, yeah.
I'm thinking the passport is finna come. Passport come up, rip it open it. Child support. I can't even get a passport. Wow. So now I have to tell her, I can't go to Punta Cana. You can go, but I can't go. So now she like, yo, you need to fix this. Mm-hmm. You need to fix it.
So let me ask you a question. So I can see how child support is fraud in what you experience. Like that, because That was crazy. Like
Mhm.
you were being held accountable for something you had no knowledge of.
Mhm.
How does that tie into a situation where someone did penetrate,
Mhm.
they had sex,
Mhm.
that's their child,
Mhm.
and they have to pay child support?
Mhm.
Is that the same?
Yes. The reason how that is because first and foremost, there's a United States code, it's 28 USC 1691.
Mhm.
That's the first thing that I look at. That says that all writs and processes issuing from a court in the United States shall be under the seal of the court and signed by the clerk thereof. What that means is it has to have the seal of the court and it must be signed by the county clerk, not the deputy clerk inside of the court building. So if those documents do not have that, they're actually void. And they know this. But the fact that they have prima facie and you don't challenge it, the court's taking it as true and correct.
Correct.
So that's one. Then there's two to where, like I said, this is not a judicial matter. It's an administrative hearing. They have to give you have to give them consent to have your case heard by an administrative officer, which is an attorney. They're not a judge. They can't issue a money judgment, but they have hearing officers issuing money judgments because a money judgment is a judicial process. You can't cross people that's in the executive branch can't partake in the judicial side. Same thing. So that aspect, when I say child support is fraud, I mean they're violating their own policies. So it doesn't matter whether you had sex with the mother, it's your kid. To answer your question, they're not following their own policies and their own policy states that is void. And if you're enforcing a void judgment when you have policies in place so these things don't happen, there's intent. Intent is the root element of fraud. So there has to be an intent. And this would, if people always ask me, what if they did everything correctly? What if it's under the seal? What if it's signed by the clerk? What if it's signed by an actual judge?
Right.
How is it still fraud? The answer is simple. The answer is very simple because they are incentivized. They are receiving $500 million annually to put people on child support based on their performance. They're getting bonuses. The courts, the state, and the actual judges. It goes into their retirement fund. So that brings us to the 14th Amendment, which is due process. No person shall be deprived of their life, liberty, or property without due process of law. You have the right to be heard and a right to a fair trial. So if you're in an administrative hearing where the states are incentivized, they're enforcing their own laws, they're creating their own laws, and they're judging you, finding you guilty in their own administrative hearing, and they're being incentivized based on their performance of putting people on child support, that's what makes child support in its entirety fraud.
So what's your thought process around child support? So, okay, I see the processes are faulty based on what you just described. I don't know. I don't have children. But your thought process on the sense of entitlement, like the child support itself, how do you feel about it?
Entitlement?
You know, some people, they feel entitled to it. And I even empathize, like I might come across as being insensitive to our women because I hear like some of these stories and the child support, that's way more than what you need to take care of the child, right? You using that money for you. So what is your thought process around it?
Well, entitlement, that's a real simple answer. I'm going to just direct you to Blessing versus Freestone. Blessing versus Freestone is a United States Supreme Court case where 5 women from Arizona who children were receiving benefits from the state. The state went after the fathers for child support. They was collecting all of the money. They was adding interest on top of the money. The interest went to the state. And the women said, well, you're collecting this from our, from the fathers, but we're only getting this amount. So where's the rest of the money? That's our money. So they sued child support. In order to keep the money, child support had to tell on themselves. They said child support was never intended to benefit the child nor the custodial parent. It was only intended to benefit the state. And child support, it literally says there's no entitlement to child support. You have no rights to child support. You're trading in another person's rights to gain privileges. So to answer your question, there is no entitlement to child support because there's no right.
So then how can the courts continue to force that? I say force it upon men and women, because
of course,
men and women both pay child support.
Prima facie. Because if you don't come in there to contest it, the court's taking everything that's filed as true and correct on its face. So there's no innocent until proven guilty. You are guilty until you prove your innocence. That's how it works.
So remember when we had that conversation, because this is another thing I want you to clear up too, because I know a lot of people get representation.
Yeah.
Can you touch on, if you do decide to get representation, what that should look like? And if not, obviously, you talk about the process of representing yourself, but speak on that, because, you said automatically if you see an attorney, that means...
You already lost. You already lost. Because child support is voluntary. Where's my camera at? This one right here?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to say it right here. Child support is voluntary. And I know that's going to ruffle some feathers. Child support is voluntary. This is not my opinion. This is fact.
How can they take people's driver's license and put them in jail and do all these things? Because they don't contest it.
Because they don't contest it. But now look, here's the thing. There's 45 CFR 303.5, which is the voluntary acknowledgement of paternity program. Child support is voluntary. So in order for them to start a child support case, paternity has to be established. And when paternity is established in a hospital, by acknowledgement of paternity, signing a birth certificate, or you giving DNA, or you not showing up to a hearing, at that time, they're supposed to provide both parents the legal consequences of establishing paternity. What are the legal consequences? You just gave a few. Jail, license suspension, passport, liens, bank levies, things of that nature. If they don't provide both parents with that, the legal consequences, and provide you the opportunity to speak with a professional, because they presume, if we told you, if you sign this document, you can go to jail, license, and things of that nature, you're going to be like, wait a minute, maybe I need to talk to somebody else. I ain't signing this. So at that point, if they don't provide that information to both parents, it's like it's the disclosures. I'm sure everyone in here purchased a car before. Yeah. They give you that loan. Yeah. Those are the disclosures. The same thing with child support. If they don't give you those disclosures at that point, paternity was never established, so therefore they can't even move on to child support. But to answer your question...
Makes it fraud.
Yeah, because you have to, when a person hires an attorney, you recognize their authority, giving them jurisdiction over you. Because it's called a general appearance. A general appearance says for any act that you make in this court and you recognize our authority, you're giving us jurisdiction. Because we never had it, you have to consent. Because child support is voluntary. How do you dispute that? I made a special appearance, which says I'm not waiving any of my rights. I'm not here to talk about money. I'm only here to examine the evidence against me, and that's it.
So with everything that you just said, how is it that so many people get caught up in the system with child support?
Because they don't invoke their rights. So it starts in family court. Most men, because it's mainly men, it's only men, what I'm about to say, because a woman, the child comes from them. So we know that this is your child because the child came from you. But men do not invoke their parental rights, stating, I am a custodial parent. I've never abandoned my children. My children are not dependent nor needy upon government assistance. I am present. So if you don't invoke your parental rights and you allow them to call you a non-custodial parent, at that point, they presume that you've waived your parental rights, and that's how you get that is your consent, because you didn't claim your parental rights, so we presume that you waived them.
You know, it's crazy, just to touch on a quick point, like the non-custodial, in a lot of my personal situations, either the officers or whomever, right, especially in dealing with the police, one of the first things they ask is, well, who's the custodial parent?
That's the first thing they want to know, because at that point, yeah.
And then when I say, okay, well, it's mom, I even had one officer tell me, well, she could do what she want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She ain't got to let you see. I was like, excuse me? No, ma'am.
Yeah.
You ain't finna say that on my phone. But these people really, and then they think they know the law, and then they really don't know the law in the ways that, you know what I'm saying? Because other things are up for interpretation, right? So they assume based on this, that, and the third, they could just run it and do it how they want. But then my argument is, well, why we got this paperwork then? You gotta go with what this paperwork is saying, period.
As far as timeshare.
Yeah, I can't deviate from it, right? Unless there's like a different type of agreement. But in the event that you can't agree, you fall back on your paperwork. But I can't tell you how many times I've shown up at the school and them folks will be like, well, we can't give you no, you can. I know my rights as a father. Now I gotta match the gas. Because you're not giving me medical. You're not giving me the educational. You're not sharing with me the information that I'm privy to as a joint legal custodial parent. Now, the physical part is something that's different. But they will literally like try to shut you down. And it, like, it used to frustrate me so much, man. It's like it makes you feel like you this big, bro. Because them people sit behind that desk and look you straight in your face. Like, well, I gotta reach out to mom first before I can know if you could take your child. Huh?
And that's
they just
crazy.
called me. These folks just called me, say, hey, you need to go pick up so-and-so from school. He ain't feeling good. Okay, cool. I'm here. Well, hold on, because you're not listed on the, and that's the other part, which I ain't gonna get into that right now. But they'll be like, you're not listed as an adult that could pick up your child, so we gotta call mom. Where they do that at?
And that's why I encourage everyone to joint legal. Like you said, joint legal just means you guys decide school and health. That's it.
50-50, yeah.
That's it. That's all joint legal custody means. Joint physical custody is where both parents are equal. There's no primary. There's no primary home. The children reside here. They reside at two different locations. But if one is a primary, then the other is a non-custodial. That means one is greater than, one is less than. But in that, you have to spend more time with your children to obtain joint physical custody. There's over 100,000 followers on my Instagram platform, and most of them are fighting to be able to see their children. They're fighting the courts to get more time. Why does a father have to fight, and some mothers, to see their offspring? And it's because they get bonuses. The more child support that they collect, the higher they get. This is aside from your pay. You're incentivized.
How do they decide the amount of money that goes to a child? Like, because you see, there are people out here who, get pregnant just to get a check. We know that.
Right.
How do they decide how much money is, awarded? Because that's exactly what it is. It's an award, to that parent.
So it goes off of the pay structure and the state. Because certain states, I don't really want to get too deep into a situation. That's what, as far as like with Tyrese, that's what he went to court saying. It's like, yo, based on a Georgia statute, I'm only supposed to pay this amount.
Yeah.
So that's what he took. That's what he went back to court for. It was saying, look, Georgia statute said I'm only supposed to pay this amount. Why are you increasing the child support to this amount? And it's like, well, because your other child in Los Angeles, this is what they're receiving, so we're giving this to you. You overstepping your boundaries.
Right.
You're overstepping your boundaries. So to answer your question, though, it goes off of the pay scale, and they have, if a person was to challenge it, you have to bring in your financial information. At that point, you're already admitting you're guilty. You're already admitting guilty because now you're you're participating into the program.
Mhm.
So as far as like with the payment, if you don't want to support your offspring and you don't claim your children in family court, they get to do what they want to do. They can take up to 75% of your every. But in Blessing versus Freestone, they said that every check that they collect, they're only entitled to provide the other parent. If it's aided, if that person is receiving government assistance, they're only supposed to give that person $50. Just say for instance, if they took $1,000.
So when you say aided, that means like, food stamps. And okay.
Yeah, if it's aided. So they're only supposed to give the mother the first $50 from that $1,000. So they keep $950 and they give the mother $50.
They keep women. You mean the state keep?
The state, yes.
So the child support taking this check. You might think you're giving $1,000, they getting 50.
So they taking the money and just pocketing. I thought that was just like a channel where they navigate or distribute or.
Yeah. So that's if it's aided, but if it's unaided, just say for instance, if a person was to go put someone on child support and there's not aided, they can take up to 75%, but usually the max that they take is 66%, to where the states keep 66% and they provide the other parent with.
I don't think people know what child support really is. Because I just don't think that if they knew that the state is going to take a portion and pocket it, why would you go that route?
And that's why I yell it so loud. I encourage men and women to read the entire case of Blessing versus Freestone, because they told on themselves and they told you that child support is not in the benefit of the child nor the custodial parent. It's only intended to benefit the state. Now, I am a firm believer. My tagline is, take care of them kids though, because this ain't no get out of jail free card.
Yeah.
So I honestly believe if a person is not taking care of their children, they deserve to be on child support.
But people take a parent to court and put them on child support just to take a dig.
True. And that's why I tell people, reclaim your power. Invoke your rights in family court. Claim your parental rights to where the other parent is actually irrelevant. They can't. You can't come to me and say, well, she did or he did. Well, what did you do? Did you go and invoke your rights? Did you file to be a joint custodial parent? Because if you didn't, then why are we even having this conversation?
And a lot of people that need to hear is, because that's how a lot of people get caught slipping too. When you go through divorce or a break, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like it automatically kind of turns into mom being primary, dad being the visiting parent or whatever. And if to his point, if you could fresh out the gates, right? Because this is new information.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I've been in the court system for the past 18 years or so. And I promise you, where that camera at? If I could have knew some things, I would have definitely did a lot of things different.
Is there a way, like, okay, say you're an active parent in your children's lives. Is there a way where you can avoid paying, take care of the kids, but avoid going through the court and paying child support?
Yes. So you can create an agreement between yourselves.
Yep.
But what if they don't want to do it? They just refuse.
Then if they refuse, then if it becomes a legal matter, even though it's not legal, because that's the thing. You guys are before us because you're incompetent to create an agreement between yourselves. So now we have to step in and provide our services. And for our services,
you got to pay.
This is what
you got to pay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then like, here's another thing, right? Because unless you're dealing with somebody, the 4% of the world or something like that, the super duper wealthy. Like for a lot of people that be going at men and making it a money issue, like in the grand scheme of things, even if you were to get $2,000, right? It's still a lot of money. When you start adding up rent or mortgage, car or insurance, utilities, all of these things, you still got to do something for yourself.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people get drugged through the mud, like, oh, you a deadbeat, you this, you that. And it's like, bro, it ain't no amount of money that's sufficient, especially when there's emotions involved. It does, like, unless you Dr. Dre or somebody like that that's getting that type of money where you literally got somebody giving you 20, 30, 100 grand a month, and you don't have to work and you can just sit around, and that's different. But so many people being taken through there, and you got good fathers that are paying, but then they not seeing.
Yeah.
And the other part too is the importance of seeing, because there are other fathers that could do it in different ways. Money is important, but that's another thing he speaks to too.
Yeah.
And you can talk about that as well, because the part of taking care of your kids, though, talk about what you're doing with your platform and how you're getting guys to put their money in different places or educate them on different things that they could do where it is benefiting their kids.
Right, because so the thing with child support is supporting your children emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, and financially. Because let's be real, these kids cost. It costs. So what we do at Tangible Equity, which is my nonprofit, to where we educate both parents of their parental rights, and not only once their case is getting dismissed, so that, just say, for instance, someone is sending $10,000 a month in child support. Now that case is actually dismissed, this ain't just free money. Now, no, you don't just stop taking care of your kids.
Right.
So what we do, we educate them on different things to, okay, now you can put this $10,000 a month, you can put that in a trust for your kids. So now once your kid grows up, now to 18, 25, you putting 10,000 or whatever. If you want to just reduce it to 5,000, it's going to an actual trust fund for your children. And because most men, they say, I just want the money to go to my kid anyway. It's going, so okay, so put that there, and then we educate you on how to manage that money to where it's put there, so when your children become of age, they have something in place for them that myself, I didn't have once I turned 18.
So I have a question. Have you heard of co-parenting bird nesting, where the kids live in one home and the parents visit the kids in the family home? How does that affect child support?
Oh, no, that's different.
Who was I talking to about that? Where it's this, they have a home where you don't take the children out of the home. They stay, so they're not displaced. Who did I have the conversation with? Okay.
Oh no, I got the research.
I had a conversation where the children is in the home. They're not displaced, but one parent come and stay a couple days, and then the other parent come and stay a couple days, and then that way the children still, they're still in their own environment. So then, like, once the parent is not in the home, like, whatever their life is aside from that, it is what it is, and same for the other parent.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, my thing would be just for the average working person who can afford 2 homes. Like, that's to where, you here and you got a home just for the kids. Now I'm staying here. I like the idea of it, because for me, I know that once one parent leaves the home, they're saying that you've abandoned your children. Now,
that's true.
Now let's just take it back to the when we're talking about child support, let's just give a brief history. Child support starts from Title 4A. Title 4A is a government grant program where the government gave states this money to help needy families in 1935. So in 1935, if a man went to war, this was after the Great Depression, when men went to war, women couldn't work in 1935. So they needed this assistance. So that's what Title 4A came. That's how it came into play. Taxpayers were saying, hey, why are we giving all this money to these needy families once things changed and once women were able to work and vote and things of that nature? So in 1975, they started Title 4D, which is child support, which Title 4D is not sexy. It does not move the needle. It doesn't tap into your emotions. Title 4D is the program, is child support enforcement. But when you hear child support, you're like, oh, wait, you don't want to take care of your kids? You're a deadbeat. Title 4A is a grant. What is a grant? Just based on?
For free money?
It's free money that you don't have to pay back. So if you're giving out free money from Title 4A that does not have to be paid back, how are you going after a non-custodial parent to pay back money that was given as a grant? How are
Right.
you obligated to participate in something that's voluntary?
Right.
So these are the things that people have to understand on how child support is fraud. Like and as far as abandonment, because if someone separates and the father leaves, at that point, they presume that you've abandoned your children if you don't claim your parental rights, saying, I want to be a joint physical custody custodial parent. So I like the idea of, what was it, bird nesting?
It's called co-parenting bird nesting.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah.
Because it keeps, there's no abandonment at that time. So we're both equal. There's no non-custodial parents. So I like it. I like the idea of it.
Speaking of ideas, like in a perfect world for me, let me just dream real quick. First things first, it should be mandatory that women, there's some type of DNA testing or something to establish who the real father is, fresh out the gate. So
it is in Florida. Florida just put it, started October 1st.
But being that, you know, we up the street around the corner, we ain't hit that yet, you know what I mean? So I'm just gonna plant this seed. That'll be one of the first things that I would like to see. The second thing is I feel and believe that unless a father or mother revokes their rights, that both parties should be joint, legal, and physical out the gate, unless a dad says that ain't what I want, or unless mom says that ain't what I want. Then if there's an actual, they can't come to an agreement, remove the attorneys, get you a good old guardian ad litem, more cost effective. And the guardian ad litem, Chanel, is a person that solely represents the child. So that means that no attorney, like it ain't no my side, your side, it's none of that. It's somebody that comes in and says, what's best for the child? Point blank period. And have that person go to the judge and say, this is what it is. This is what we feel is the best situation. Now, you got to get the right people on deck in order to do that.
Definitely.
But I feel like these are some of the things that could be so beneficial to having the courts be ran a lot smoother, because you got to think, like, in one of my situations, it took 1.5 years just to get a date, 1.5 years of collected contempts and all kind of stuff going on. You know what I'm saying? Just taking record of dealing with all of that. The 1.5 years messed her up. She had to cough. But you all right? But you know, when I just think about all of these things, and then the amount of money that's being paid, in my personal situation, when I look at what I paid over 17 years or so, you talking about low end 700,000, 750,000 that could have went towards these children, their benefits, their wellness, anything like that, you know what I mean, that's going on. So I just hope and wish, because it's a man thing. And the other thing too, it's not as a black thing. It's like, it's men. I'll never forget, I was in court one day, I saw this Caucasian brother, like he didn't come up with whatever money he was supposed to. Them folks saying he couldn't pick up his phone and send a text, nothing. It's like they gave a hand signal and them folks came behind him and locked him up on spot. Which is another thing I know you can speak on too, because again, it's not right. It's fraud on that end too, because you're not supposed to be able to.
You can't go to jail for child support because child support is a debt. There's no debtor prisons in the United States.
How did people get away with this though?
Prima facie. And there's something that they have tricky things in place. Ignorance of the law is not a legal defense. So if you're here representing yourself, we presume that you did your own due diligence to be able to represent yourself. And if you hired someone and they didn't make a special appearance on your behalf, you gave us jurisdiction.
Wow.
So, but
because they got to say special appearance.
They have to say special appearance. Like there's the FDCPA, which is the Fair Debt Credit Protection Act. They don't recognize child support as a consumer debt. But there's a Supreme Court case law called Patet versus Patet, where they said that you have an obligation to support your children. But once that obligation is transformed into a money judgment where A is going after B for X amount of dollars, when they're taking your check every 2 weeks or every month or whatever that system is, that obligation is reduced to a money judgment, therefore a debt. And it is unconstitutional for anyone to go to jail for a debt that is not fraud. The only way you can go to jail for a debt is if you committed fraud. That's it.
All right, guys. Well,
man, I wanna.
TJ
Hey, listen, I love you, brother. Keep doing what you're doing, man. And I know you're hustling and grinding and doing all these things, man. But again, successful Black brother. Married, you got a unicorn story. No matter if it was on and off, it was still somebody that you met, high school around that time.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all rocking together, y'all raising your children together. You're successful in business. Your wife is doing her thing. I just think it's good to see that, and God actually put this on you, brother, because you're gonna bless a lot of people because nobody's doing. And even if it is, it might be one other person or something like that. But this space, because and that's the other thing too, man, like you got to be protected, bro. Because this is, what I'm talking about, bro. Because it's like, it's reaching into a territory, man, where them folks, the powers to be really looking like, hold up now. Because you know what I'm saying, you tapping into this space that is coming into what we do.
Yeah. And I mean, many people have got their case dismissed, but I don't know not one other person who got their case dismissed for extrinsic fraud. Like it literally says they committed fraud because I broke down their actual system. Mm-hmm. And one last thing I just want to say, because I know it affects a lot of people as well. Child support should not be on your credit report because it wasn't given there was no credit transaction. Child support was notified by the credit bureaus 13 years ago that the laws have changed. And if they left it up to child support until we get everything in place, we're leaving it up to you. But child support should not be on anyone's credit report. So if child support is on your credit report right now today, if you're watching it and it's on your credit report, that's fraud.
Wow. Well, tell the people where they can find you.
Everything is real simple. Childsupportisfraud.com. Okay. Child Support is Fraud on Instagram. Child Support is Fraud on YouTube. Childsupportisfraud.com. Keep it real simple. They try to put the hold on me on Instagram, putting restrictions on me, but everything is Child Support is Fraud. Yeah.
I appreciate it, brother, because we literally can probably dive another 30, 40, man, because you got so much game to give, and there's so many parents, especially fathers, that need to hear this. And again, like you said, it's not just, the fathers that's going through it. It's, women,
of course,
just on both sides. But thank you, man, to keep doing the work that you're doing. Thank you for blessing us with your presence, man, all the way from Lala.
Oh, yes.
My dog from Compton to the A.
Yeah, man.
You know what I'm saying? Suited and booted.
I appreciate y'all for having me. I had to come right. I mean,
that's right.
The queen, she comes ready. I said, okay. I gotta, get in that mindset of.
But you stay locked and loaded, brother. We appreciate you, man, and much love. Relationships Matter, the podcast. See y'all next time.